Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's video. Today we're going to go over two more inference rules and some practice problems to get you guys ready for the homework. All right, so let's get started. So I wanted to point out a couple points that you guys should keep in mind as you're doing the homework. That's going to be due at 6 p.m. today. Basically, keep in mind that when you're working through them, there's two methods that you can use. Basically, keep in mind, what are your premises? What do you have that you can break apart to get you somewhere, right? And you also have to keep in mind of your goal, like what are you trying to get, right? And so a lot of times when your goal is just like one letter, say it's like prove P or something like that, or prove Q, and you're like, okay, well that doesn't really get me anywhere. Let's look at my premises. Let's use the top down method. Let's use what we got in the premises and see where it can get us to the bottom of the end at the end of the proof, which is our conclusion. But sometimes your premises themselves, you literally can't do anything with them. You've got, you say you've got two conditionals and you're like, well, I can't break these apart without, having some sort of subproof. So, but I don't know which subproof to start. And that's where you go to your conclusion, which is the very thing that you're trying to prove. And you look and you see, okay, well, what kind of things am I trying to get to? And that'll help me, open up my subproof or get me in a direction that I want to go on. So also keep in mind that your rules are basically your best friend. If you're ever stuck on any question, go back to these rules. I really highly recommend that you guys just like as you're doing your homework, just have them next to you, like written out, and just look back at them, because a lot of times, like as you're doing the question, you're not sure how a rule works, or you're not sure how a subproof works, or you're not sure how to cite it, or whatever the case may be. But if you have it next to you, you just right away, you can check that out right away. And so professor had been saying like this is the creative aspect of the course, which is definitely true compared to the truth tables, because these were just like just filling in a big chart. Like it doesn't really require much. But the creative aspect is basically figuring out when to use the rules at the right time, right? There's nothing special about it. It's not like you're like coming up with your own rules or anything like that. You're not coming up with anything. All you're doing is just using a set of rules that you're given to reach a conclusion, to solve the problem. Okay, so let's get started with our first inference rule, which is our disjunction introduction. So I have gone over other inference rules in the last video. If you want to brush up on those, I'll have the playlist at the end of the video. You guys can just click on it. But basically, I'm getting started with the two that you need to know for the last two that you need to know for this homework. So that's the disjunction introduction. So this rule is actually very, very special because you guys could just literally add a letter to it, whatever you want to the disjunction. So if you've got an A right away, you can just add a B without doing anything else. You just came up with a B and you just put that in there. So it's like A or B, disjunction introduction from the premise from M, which is like number one, for example, if you're doing a question. And same the other way around, right? You can add B, but you can do it like the other way. It doesn't matter what the order is, pretty much. And so this is going to be very helpful for certain problems a lot of the times, and we'll see that in the practice. But basically, let's see. Yeah, so let's take a look at the second rule. So this is the disjunction elimination. So basically, if you've got A or B and you're trying to eliminate that, you're trying to separate them out, and you're trying to prove C, for example, all that you need to do is just start a subproof. You do A, which is the first part of your disjunction. You get to C, which is the very thing you're trying to prove, but you're not done. You have to also do it from B, right? And then you get to C, and then you exit that subproof, and you've proved C through disjunction elimination using lines M, which is our first part of the disjunction itself, and then the two subproofs, which is I through J and then K through L. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's look at some practice. So let's say we want to prove E or D using this one premise, C and D, parentheses, or E, right? So this is our premise, and then you see these three dots, it's like therefore or prove or whatever, this, okay? So pretty straightforward. So let's set it up. So I'm going to put this on the side. This is just how I like to do it. I like to put my conclusion on the side just so I can see it as I'm doing my question. And so I start with my bar, I put everything in. This is my first premise. There's no other premises, so I can just close that off with that bar. Okay, so now let's get started. So what is the first thing that I can do? What in this question allows me, what can I do in this? Well, I can't break it off. I can't break off C and D and just get E, or I can't break off E and just get C and D, because this is a disjunction. Unlike the conjunction, you can't just break it off and get whatever letter. It's an or. Remember that. So you can't do that. You have to use two subproofs to get there. Okay, well, which subproofs am I trying to get? Like, how do I start this? So again, you're trying to reach this conclusion, remember? So this is like the A and the B example, right? Let's go back. So this is like your A and your B, and you're trying to get to C. It's the same exact layout, okay? So if we keep going, so we've got our C and D, or E. So that's like A or B, and we're trying to get like to C, for example, which is our E or D. So our first half of this is going to be breaking apart our A section, which is in this case C and D, into subproof. Okay, and then the next part later on, we're going to have to do a second subproof where we do assuming E. So we're starting the subproof. We've got our first half of the disjunction, and then we can break it off from now to get to just get D. And why am I doing that? What's the point of that? Well, again, we have to look back at our goal. What are we trying to get to? We're trying to get to E or D. So then from D in number 3, how can I add E to it? How do I put E on? Just like that. You can literally just add the or E in, and you just get or introduction from line 3, and you're good. So that's how simple that disjunction introduction is. And then we're not done yet. We still have to do the other side of the disjunction, okay? Because that's just the rule. Again, I'm not making anything up. This is just how the rules are. So we got our second subproof, we get the other half of the disjunction E, and then I'm trying to get, remember, or my goal is to get to E or D, okay? And so I could just easily do that by literally just doing E or D, just adding that or D in, and then disjunction introduction from line 5, and I'm good to go. And then I have to exit my subproof. I'm not done yet. I'm almost done. I have to exit my subproof and say therefore E or D. Okay, so and when I cite it, obviously disjunction introduction, but it's from line 1 because that was our original disjunct that we broke apart to get our conclusion. And then my two subproofs, so 2 through 4, 5 through 6. And if you guys are still not getting it, definitely look up practice problems. In the book, I would highly recommend that you guys go back to the solutions that the professor posted and review those questions with the solutions. Try to do them on your own, and then go back and see how the solution is done. And that'll be really, really helpful for the homework. Questions are pretty similar. Okay, so let's take a look at our second problem. So we've got basically to another disjunction, right? This is still disjunction practice, and we've got two halves of the disjunction, these two halves, and we're trying to prove just P by itself. So which method are we going to be using, top down or bottom up? Is the goal very helpful? Is P very helpful to us? Not really. We're just looking at it like, okay, what are we doing? What can we do? So let's take a look at the pieces that we've got. And Professor keeps mentioning the main connective, and that is key. We need the main connective in order to figure this out. So our main connective is the disjunction, and that's where okay, we can separate these two pieces out, get P from each piece, and then we prove P, and we're good to go. So that's our game plan so far. So again, I like to put my P over here at the end, and then I start, here's my premise, and then I can set up my subproof, which is P and Q, right? Assuming that this is my subproof, and then I get P by itself, which is the exact thing I'm trying to get, That was just my conclusion right there through disjunction, through conjunction elimination, right? This is the conjunction now. I can just easily eliminate it. So we're good. Now I'm not done. I still have to do the other half of the disjunction. And I assume that. And then I also get P through conjunction elimination from line 4. And then I got P through lines 1, which is my original disjunction, and then the 2 subproofs, which is 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's exactly what I have. And then you're good. Okay, so I wanted to also go over the conditionals because I think that was the most tricky, definitely for me when I was taking the class, about how to do that. Even now when I was repracticing these, I was like, okay, what the heck? And then I had to go back and be like, okay, here's my rules. What am I doing? And I was able to figure it out from there. But definitely it shows that this is not something that's like, automatic. It does take practice. It does take time. So definitely plan that into your schedule. Okay, so let's get started. So we've got our practice problem, we've got our conclusion over here, which is what we're trying to get, and we've got something over here. So we can't really break it apart, right? You need to assume something in order to be able to break this apart. And over here, we're trying to get to a conditional. Our conclusion is a conditional. When I first started this, I was like, okay, can I just assume A and like keep going from there? That will get you nowhere. Just start assuming the very thing that you're trying to prove. So this is where we need to use the bottom-up method. We need to use our goal that's going to help us solve the problem. So from the bottom to the top. And so our goal is A and B, arrow C. So arrow right away, I know I'm going to need a what? I'm going to need a conditional introduction, right? And the rule for the conditional introduction is that you need a subproof, just one, right? Okay, so then what do I need? How do I start this subproof? Well, you need that first half. You need the if part as the beginning part. You have to assume the if part in order to get the conclusion. And if we're able to assume this part and get C at the end, then we're done. So why don't we just do that? Let's start with that. So I've got my setup over here. I got my A and B, and now things start to get a little bit easier. Okay, so what can I take apart from here that'll be very helpful using that one premise that I have? Okay, well, I've got A and B, and then I've got A arrow B and C. Well, if I break apart A, I leave A to the side and I bring down B, that's not going to be very helpful for me because there's nothing I can do after that. B is within a conditional that's within another conditional. So you've got to break up the main connective. You've got to break up the main connective. So we've got to put down A, right? When we put down A through conjunction elimination, then we can get B arrow C, right? Because when we get A, when you get the if part of a conditional, then you can get the then part of the conditional, right? But you can't do anything else. You have to start with the main connective. You have to go from big to small when you're doing this. Okay, so obviously I use lines 1 and 3. I can't just put line 1 or can't just put line 3. You needed both of those. And then from there, I break apart B. And how did I break apart B? Why am I breaking apart B? Remember, I'm trying to get to C. My goal is to get to C. I've already assumed A and B. I'm trying to get to C at the end. Well, C is embedded within this sentence within this biconditional. So I've got to get the first part of it to get C by itself. So once I broke apart B from my, what is it called? Conjunction elimination, then I can get C through conditional elimination, right? Then once I've got that first part, that if part of the if statement, then I can take away C right away and I'm good. So I'm pretty much good to go. I proved from assuming A and B that C can come about. So therefore, A and B, arrow C. And I did that using the subproof from lines 2 through 6 through a conditional introduction, and I'm good to go. And that's it. So it's way simpler than most people are probably going to start it. I definitely went like a really weird route, and I was like trying to do weird subproofs, and the most important thing that you need to keep in mind is when you start a subproof is why are you starting the subproof? You can't just randomly start any subproof that you want. You have to keep in mind what your goal is. So in this case, we needed to start the subproof because we needed a conditional introduction. That is the only way we can start a subproof. Not to eliminate a conditional. That can only be done with, that's not done through a subproof. Okay. But when you want to introduce a conditional, then you need a subproof, and it's just easiest to just go back to your conclusion, look at what it's demanding of you, and just start that as your subproof. So I hope that was really helpful for you guys. Let's do one more practice problem using the biconditional now. So now we've got two premises, and we're trying to prove this one simple sentence. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I have this laid out for you guys over here, and so let's walk through it. So we've got A or A biconditional B, that's our first premise, B biconditional C, and I wasn't supposed to lay it all out for you, but it's okay. So pretend like you didn't see all of that. But okay, so basically it's the same idea as the biconditional. I'm sure you guys already got it. So always look back to that conclusion. What do we have? What are we trying to prove? In this case, again, it's a case in which you can't really do much with what you've got. You can't just randomly start a subproof in order to get rid of a biconditional. You have to start a subproof in order to introduce a biconditional. And the only way to do that is, since we're giving that in the conclusion, then let's just go ahead and do that, right? Just look at your conclusion when it comes to these biconditional or conditional introductions. You need to introduce it here, so you might as well just start it in your subproof. So with the biconditional, we need two subproofs, we know that, and it needs to be from both sides, so A to C and from C to A. So pretty straightforward. So let's start with A. So we got A, and then from there, once I've got A, then I can break it apart and get B. From premise one, I can break premise one apart and get B, and then I have to just say biconditional elimination 1 and 3. And then from there, I can also, once I've gotten B, I can get C from premise 2 and 4, and then I've got it right there. I've already proved that's the first half of my subproof. So then my second subproof is now from C to A. And so let's assume C, and then going to B, because of biconditional elimination, right? Again, for the biconditional, it's symmetrical. You can take away the precedent. Yes, you can take away the consequent or the precedent, and then you were able to get the other half, which is like, in the conditional, there's an if then, and you can only get the if to get the then. Well, this you can do the other half. I don't want to call it then because it's if and only if. So you can do that other half, and then you're able to get, so you can do basically the left side in order to get the right side. So that's what we did over here. We've got, so we got C, right? Assume C, and we were able to get B through there, through biconditional eliminations from line 2 through 6, 2 and 6. And then from A, then I'm able to get A because B is there. And again, same thing applies for the line before it. So then biconditional eliminations from line 1 and 7. And then I'm pretty much done. So I proved from both sides that I'm able to get a biconditional C. And I can just put that down, the biconditional introduction, and making sure to cite my two proofs, which is 2 through 5 and 6 through 8. Through 8. I apologize. So that's a typo. So 6 through 8. Okay, and we're good to go from there. I hope this was helpful for you guys for the homework. Definitely, if you have any questions, please email me and let me know. All right, good luck.